Yeah.
Work, 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 work. You make me work, 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 work. You see me do me dirt, 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 dirt. Cause I'm made for that work, 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 work. When you walk a line, 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 in the cafe, it's just entertainment purpose. It's not. It's entertainment purpose. It's not.
Meant to be in the case of anybody.
This is just entertainment purpose. It's not.
Hi, hotties, kettles, tea stirs. You're here for hot tea. All commentary is alleged, and in my opinion, this is for entertainment purposes only. So I am going to be releasing the poll soon when it comes to our name. Y'all stay tuned for that. I'm still searching for the names that you guys are listing in the comments the most. So far, we have hot teas. We have kettles. I've seen that name mentioned a few times. And then hot tea stirs. I let you guys know that we weren't going to go with teapots or teacups because that seemed a little too common. So after this video, I am going to release the poll, or tonight I'm going to drop the poll. Y'all vote on it, and when I get 5,000 subscribers, I'm going to go live and announce the winner. I am going to do a giveaway. I'm picking 3 winners that can guess my age, guess my zodiac sign, and then I'm going to ask you guys a question on the live, the mystery question. There can only be 3 winners. I'm doing a cash prize of $10, and we are also going to launch the new channel name. So let's get into this video, you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, hit that post notification bell so you can be up to date when I upload, and you can be up to date with all of the latest Love and Marriage Huntsville drama. I want to talk about this interview that Kimmy did with Bossip. I'm probably going to cut this interview down a little bit because Kimmy just seems a bit boring, and I don't expect the lady to jump through hoops or anything, but Kimmy strikes me as the person that has always gotten by because of her appearance, if you know what I mean. Kimmy high yellow, and that's always been her saving grace. And this is no shade to the high yellow women, but we all know colorism exists in our community. And Kimmy just seems to strike me as the person that thought that she would get by because of that, and it didn't actually get her what she wanted. So now she just kind of go with what she can get based off of that. And she kind of strikes me as the person that are envious to the women that she feels like she's supposed to have more than, i.e., male. Now, that can be a stretch, but that's just my personal opinion, you guys, and this is all alleged. She just strikes me as that person. Also, I want you guys to know I am not bashing Kimmy. I am going to discuss Kimmy and discuss and break down this interview that she had with Bossip because she is a reality star. I understand that Kimmy is going through a major health battle, but that does not exempt her from this conversation. So going back to what I said, it's no secret that you all know I think Kimmy is male identified, heavy on the male identified. It's also no secret that I think that she was the side chick. Why do I think this? Because it just seems as though she cannot relate to any of the wives. And this interview, in my opinion, further clarified that. Part of me feels like Kaiuwa knows something about their union that we don't know, which is why she acts the way that she acts toward Kimmy. Also, if you listen to the things Kimmy say, I don't know any wife, or I don't know women that think like that, or you know, the women that I can at least resonate with. It just seems like she can never actually put herself in Melody's shoes. It seems as though she can never actually stand firm on one side of the fence. And let's be honest, at the end of the day, when it comes to the Melody and Martell situation, it's only one side of the fence to stand on. So when she continues to portray Martell to be this good guy, it's extremely telling how she's able to resonate with him and empathize and sympathize with him, but you never see or hear her clearly stand firm on being able to understand where Melody comes from, her position, so on and so forth. There's always a gray area with Kimmy and Melody, whereas with Martell, she's always able to consider his feelings and understand where he's coming from. So in my opinion, when this lady asked her about Melody and Martell, why is it, and you guys have to pay attention, she always compliments Martell. She always says, well, he's a good guy. You know, he missed his family. With everything that we know about Martell, literally with everything that we know that he's done and said to Melody, this is still continuing her stance. This is the stance that she continued to push. Also, if you pay attention, she never says, well, I think Melody is a beautiful mother, or I think Melody is a great mom, knowing that this man is taking her to court for full custody of her children. This is a woman, a mother, a wife, y'all. So Kimmy, I just can't really get with Kimmy. And even that first scene when Melody came over and brought her flowers, I was watching when Tay Talks, and they were saying, like, it looked like, you know, he was mad, or they were arguing before Mel even came in the building. And it definitely looked like Maurice cannot stand Melody. He can't stand that Melody is even around, or Kimmy keeps Melody around to bounce ideas off of her, because we all know they're using Melody in some which way or another. Kimmy is not a good friend, or is not a friend to Melody, or else she wouldn't continue to big up Martell while never complimenting Mel. I don't care what anyone say. You can go back interview after interview after interview after interview. She always makes sure to compliment Martell. She never makes sure to compliment Melody. And I'm willing to pull up every interview if y'all want to see the proof. As a woman, if I'm to say I'm friends with the woman especially, and I'm getting an interview question like what she asked about Martell, I would say, you know what? I think Martell probably does miss his family, but he had a baby on Melody, and those things you can't come back from. Instead of saying, you know, some women, you know, some people you don't come back from certain things. She leaves room for confusion, right? Most women are not coming back from that. You only have a very small amount of women that stay in a relationship with the man that has had a baby on her. And Kimmy would actually answer the question in that way, because I believe she would be the type to stay if a man had a baby on her. Also, I believe she's a side chick. Like, she would be the type to have a baby with a married man, allegedly, in my opinion. Because she's also the same person that, again, I just stated that Kimmy has never in interviews complimented Mel or even considered her feelings. Yet this is the same broad that sat on national television and said to Martell, but that's not fair. What about how she feels when it comes to his side chick? As a woman, that's flawed. And as much as I don't like Letitia was not nasty enough to even consider what a side chick would feel like. One, because Letitia is insecure and she know dang on well that her husband is cheating on her. But also, why is it that Kimmy don't want us to talk about what Maurice is doing after 4? And also, after 4 in the morning. And also, on this interview, she was bragging about like, oh yeah, I already knew my man. He been stepping up to the plate. Sweetheart, are we watching the same show? Love, the situations, the predicaments, and things that Maurice has put you through, I wouldn't ask for my enemy. Like, and then she bragged like, oh, well, me and him dated for a long time, as if that's a flex. You 50 something years old. At the time you had to been like 45 or so, dating this man for 5-7 years before you get married. That's something a rookie would make. That's something a young girl would do. Wasting 7 years of your life to then end up with a man that is, I don't care what she say. Well, he might be the expectation for her, but at the end of the day, Maurice is bare minimum. He's bare minimum, if even. He doesn't even communicate with you. He doesn't respect you. He respects that dark-skinned woman that he had that baby with, that he cheated on, who I presume to think that he's actually in love with. Like, some people, I remember y'all saying in the comments that Miss Marlene is raising Martell off of guilt. I think that the reason why Maurice allowed Kaiuwa to treat Kimmy the way that she does and act the way that she do, going unchecked, and even offering to pay for her mortgage, taking money out of Kimmy's mouth, a lady that waited 7 years to marry you. He's taking money out of your mouth to pay for his ex-wife because he has guilt. That's why he's willing to put her before you, Kimmy, allegedly, and in my opinion, because I don't care even when Kimmy sat down with Kaiuwa, how she even tried to Kimmy comes off as passive aggressive. She's the type of person that plays all soft and sweet, but at the end of the day have a nasty, nasty motive behind her. She also alluded to Maurice and Kaiuwa not actually being on the same page when it comes to co-parenting. She said that, sometimes it's the parents that are not on the same page with how to raise their own kids. And I agree, but I also think Kimmy should stay out of it because I also believe, like I said, male identified. Her knowing Kaiuwa was a thick, dark-skinned woman, I think that she thought she had a one-up on Kaiuwa, honestly, and in my opinion. I think she thought she would get a better version of Maurice, which in my opinion, she positioned herself for Maurice to see her. She did say that she knew Kaiuwa before she knew Maurice, and she knew that they were married. She did say that she didn't know who they were at first when she first met Kaiuwa, but at the end of the day, you found out who she was, and you still ended up with her husband. That's shady in itself. So to do that and then not have a conversation with Maurice on how you're going to go about I guess you guys' life with you having a son and him having a son tells a lot about your character as a woman. As far as the discipline conversation goes, I feel like Kimmy shouldn't have any say-so over Monster's disciplining because I think that you guys are stuck on physical discipline. Discipline comes in many ways. You guys also don't understand Kimmy is only human. People have resentment for people. She could have resentment for Monster's mother. She could have resentment for Maurice for leaving her to take care of Monster while she has, her health issues, which could in turn have her discipline him by overusing her authority. I'm not saying that this is happening, but I'm saying when people are thinking about discipline, they're thinking about one physical form, and that's that. But discipline comes in many shapes and forms. You know what I'm saying? She could simply put Monster on punishment because he's aggravating as fuck. And she's a human. You know what I'm saying? She's just a human. I'm not saying that that is how she acts. That's not her perspective. That's not her viewpoint. I'm just saying people do that. And to put that past her is exactly what type of woman she is. She is the person that walks in every room being a chameleon so she can do and act as how she wants. At the end of the day, Kimmy control her narrative because she's good at being passive about certain things, which is also why she's stressed out. I think before she actually got into her health issue, she was starting to look drained and stressed out by Maurice, but that's just my opinion. She also clarified the issue with Stormy and Melody, but even still in that moment, she left room for a gray area instead of standing 10 toes down on Melody's side and simply saying the first season, I can understand why people would feel like that, but at the end of the day, after that, that's how she is. Everybody know Melody. I do think she kind of shaded Stormy when she was like, unless you thought that you would get a special type of treatment. But at the end of the day, the gray area was her saying, but I can see how somebody new would feel about that. Because, why does she always have to leave a gray area? Stand 10 toes down with Melody. At the end of the day, you don't understand why anybody would be upset about that, seeing as though anybody that y'all know that Melody takes a break. Not even production have her number. Keep it like that and move on. But the fact that she always have to leave a gray area for people to wander and think is so annoying, and it just goes to show she's a snake and she is loyal to Maurice. Maurice is loyal to to Martell because they are all one in the same. And instead of Kimmy being honest about it, she's embarrassed and she just sticks and stands next to her man. Because a lot of women her age, they would rather have a man than just live their life. And some women just don't move with that type of intention for themselves. The intention is to have good people around you, no matter who that is. And whoever isn't productive and providing anything for you, they got to go. And I don't know what Maurice provides for Kimmy, but it just seems like he provides her with the bare minimum and she's okay with that. But I'm going to let y'all go ahead and watch this. I'm not going to go too much harder on Kimmy any longer. Well, I'm just in this video, I'm not. So y'all get in the comments, let me know what you think. I can be reaching, but this is just my perspective of it all. And I cannot wait until we get to see more of Kaiuwa. That way I can break this down a little bit better.
But I like the fact that they're bringing new people with new situations to discuss and discover.
Right. So we're getting new situations to discuss and discover. And I think you said a really interesting word there when you were talking about sometimes you don't want to talk to certain people. You tell producers that. I think in episode 1, we saw Mel. She was helping to plan your gathering, your party. She didn't really want to talk to people, so she had a trap phone calling people up. What was your reaction to your girl Mel in this trap phone, calling up to give the invites to people?
Well, it tickled me, first of all, because even when we talked about it, I was wondering how she was going to get it done. Because sometimes when Mel takes her hiatus, people don't have her new phone number. So I was like, if she calls from her phone, they don't have your new phone number. So I was tickled. I was wondering how she was going to circumvent, calling all of these people. She assured me when we had our conversation that she was okay with making the phone calls, even though there were several people that were, not in her best comfort zone. And so I believed her. I mean, I didn't know how she was going to get it figured out, but but she got it figured out.
She did. Okay, and you know what? I think that's a good point too, because I think when fans were watching and they saw what was happening with Mel and Stormy, people didn't understand about this hiatus, like you said, that Mel takes. So you know Mel, and we're like, we watch the show. Mel does indeed take hiatuses after the show to, like Rosie is saying right here, to protect her peace. So that is like a thing. So you've never had a situation where, for you personally, you were offended when you.
But see, like that's not my personality either. Because even if you remember, Tisha and I had a moment where Tisha felt like I didn't call her enough. Like that's just, I'm not a big caller. I'm not gonna run you down. Like if you want a hiatus, then go ahead on. And when you feel like coming on back, then we're gonna holler at you. So no, it doesn't move me like maybe it moves other people. However, if you're committed to making a friendship work and the other people are affected by it, then maybe you might make some changes. You know what I'm saying? But at this juncture, there's not a person who knows us that shouldn't know that she's going to take a hiatus. Like the first one might have been a surprise. Like, when Tisha, she was like, oh, I had to back away. That might have been a surprise. At this juncture, it shouldn't be a surprise. Like, I mean, so the only people that are surprised are maybe people who thought they was different. Like it was going to be different for them.
Okay. Fair. Okay, you know your girlfriend. So once again, this is Bossip's Reality Recap. I'm your host at IDM Canada, managing editor of Bossip.com. This is, of course, Miss Kimmy Scott from Lamh, Huntsville. Let's see if the fans have any questions. We are God's girls at Kimmy KLS. She gave you a nice kiss. Reed Peter says, we love your honesty. You are so authentic. Did you know Mel would change with Stormy? Well, I feel like you just said she didn't change. Mel was being Mel. Okay, and then we see some Team Kimmy and some hellos. All right, so this season we're going to see more of you and your husband, and we're going to be talking about co-parenting that you guys have going on. And official description says you guys are working to get Monster in a better space with his behavior and accountability, and you guys are upping the ante by bringing in Monster's mother, Maurice's ex, in hopes they can get on the same parental page. So you are no stranger to co-parenting, no stranger to being a bonus mom at this point. What is it like, in addition to just being a bonus mom, but having it play out on camera on Love and Marriage Huntsville, having people really see?
Well, any of our situations that play out on camera, it adds a different layer to the situation. Especially in my opinion, when it comes to children and how that is, how the conversation comes out and it is addressed and it is handled. So it does make it makes it a little more difficult because you want to make sure to consider all the parties involved personally. And so co-parenting in general, everybody knows that when you get into a relationship, you have to deal with all the parents that come with that relationship. And so everybody's not always on the same page as far as the expectations, the standards, the discipline, and we have to be close to the page. Everybody, I mean, you don't have to be on the same page. We need to be in the same book. Yeah. We need to be in the same book when that's concerned. And sometimes we're not. Like, and I mean, even if it wasn't a co-parent situation, sometimes men and women, husband and wives, just aren't on the same page when it comes to raising children. And so a lot of times people want to put the spin on it that, the co-parenting part is the bigger issue. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes the actual parent and the dad and the mom and the dad in the home have to be on the same page. And that doesn't always happen when it comes to raising kids. I think moms are nurturers. By nature, they're nurturers. And dads are a little more, assertive in that regard when it comes to, punishments and, conversation. And so I think a lot of times we just view things differently as men and women. We view raising children differently.
Right. And that's fair. And, speaking of co-parenting, something that even played out on episode 1 was we saw there was this, I guess you could call it a co-parenting conversation on one side. So Martell had asked Melody to pray, he said, for their co-parenting situation. According to Mel, she said the actual prayer was about him praying that they could reconcile and get back together. What do you think about these fan theories? And it's not even a fan theory, it's a Carlos King theory at this point because he said at the reunion that Martell honestly just really wants his family back. He's not so much worried about the co-parenting, he's more so worried about the coupling.
I obviously can't speak for either of them. However, from what I know in our friendship, to say the least. When they first separated, I honestly thought that they would work it out. If I was a betting woman, I would have lost my money because I would have thought that they had worked it out. But at this juncture, I do get that they've had some obstacles that, you just aren't going to be able to come back from for most people. I think Martell loves the aspect of family. From what I know of him as a person, that's just what I believe. He has said, matter of fact, several times. And he likes that environment. I mean, obviously, he doesn't like the fussing and fighting and not getting along or not getting what he wants out of a relationship. And I'm sure she doesn't like not getting what she needs out of a relationship. But I think he does miss the situation. I think he misses having a family. And quite frankly, I think he's verbalized that several times, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think if he came out flat out said, Mel, I want my family. I don't think anyone would be like, I don't
think anyone would be surprised either.
Fair. So speaking of the old days, when the show first started, we met the comeback group. This was something that you guys had back in the day, pre-filming. What would it take to get that group back together? And do you miss the old school comeback group days yesterday?
Let me take Jesus, first of all. Take an act of God himself. And I say that because we had so many internal opinions. Even as friends, when we first stopped doing the comeback group, we didn't leave angry. We didn't leave just hating each other. We just came to a point where it was 6 people who wanted to be the leader, and everybody isn't built to be a leader. Some people literally were built to be followers. And so I think that, coupled with the fact that on top of the fact that we all knew we had troubles bringing it together, after that, then we had troubles within the core, on top of the fact that the comeback group didn't actually work. And I think once we started having troubles in the core group, that's what made it more difficult for everybody to remember the vision. And remember what we were in it for in the first place and come back to that. Because, Maurice and I were actually the first people out of the comeback group. So when Melody called and asked us to come back in, it was the vision of what we knew we had talked about in the first place that made us like, all right, we'll give it one more shot. And I don't know if everybody has that in them. I don't know if everybody got that one more shot left. I think we got one more shot everybody out at this point.
People might be fed up. They're like, okay,
right.
Enough, it's done. Yeah. Okay, now speaking of Maurice, how is Maurice? How is he doing? I'm sure he is ecstatic for the latest update in your health journey.
Maurice is doing great. I couldn't have asked for a better partner in this journey. And in many conversations, I tell people my entire life was set up by Jesus. Like me meeting Maurice when I did, things happening during the time frame that they did, all of it for me was the plan. It was obviously, and I didn't know it at the time, but it just simply was. I even say the TV show was part of that plan because the character that I am normally, for me to get such a life-changing diagnosis, I usually pull away and I get it figured out in quiet by myself. But with my husband encouraging me, in all honesty, to go ahead and bring it to the show and continue forward, it's helped so many people that have literally called me and told me about, they've been putting off a mammogram. They finally went and got it because of the show. And that means the world to me. Like the world, all of the things we've gone through since June, we get a lot of good news and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be where I am and I'm blessed to have the outcomes that I've had so far. But more than anything, helping the few people that have told me for a fact that that show helped them means so much more, so much more.
Absolutely. And that's beautiful. And I love that we get to see the Black love between you guys on this show because yes, things happen. Yes, maybe you guys will clash, but we always love to see how strong your love story is. And I think that's very special. I think for a lot of people, there's always been this kind of thing about reality TV curse, and we don't see any hint of that playing out with you guys at all. It's never like, oh, Kimmy and Maurice are going to break up. So my question, I guess, is how do you guys keep your relationship so strong and so sound? Because other people on reality TV, you see it happen all the time.
I think a lot of it was because we were strong before the show, and we dated a long time. Like, we didn't just know each other 4 or 5 months and get married and have to grow to know each other. So every day you do find out more about your partner, but we dated a long time. We had a lot of conversations. And so it's funny to me, even when some of the fans, y'all should have talked about it. I'm like, you think we didn't? Like, do you really think we didn't? We talked about a lot of stuff before we got married. And there were things in my disposition and his that would cause us to bump heads often. And so we had a lot of time to work on some of the things that might cause another couple stress. You know, how you communicate with each other, how you handle situations of greater magnitude. You know, if you can't handle the little stuff, you're not going to be able to handle the big stuff. And so far, I think we do a pretty good job. There's sometimes I may snap and people are like, I should talk to him, or vice versa, because we're human. But in the time frame that we dated, we really tried to learn each other and how we can communicate and make our relationship the best thing. And I believe Jesus sent him for me. You know, a lot of people in one of my interviews asked me, you know, we see Maurice step up to the plate. And I said, y'all tickle me. Y'all act like y'all don't know who I married. He ain't step up tonight. He been at the plate. He beat the plate. You know what I'm saying? And so it tickles me when people say, oh, we see him stepping up. And I knew who I married. And I had no doubt that he was gonna carry me. You know how you see that that poem about Jesus carrying the person through the footsteps. And when they looked down, they only saw one. I knew he was gonna pick me up. There was no doubt. No doubt. Y'all might have doubted. I never did. I never did.
Okay. So I would imagine that you guys had a good time filming the season because you guys had some updates to share. But besides filming with your husband, who else did you really enjoy filming with this season of Love and
Marriage? I didn't get an extraordinary amount of time because when they came back, I was still in chemo, and then I had to do surgery. So I kind of had a little downtime. But I'm gonna tell you, like, in all honesty, I love that Tisha and I got to get to a better place where we get to get back on one accord and have multiple scenes where we're able to sit down and have conversations that are meaningful to us. So I love that. That I love 100%. I also love, actually, I like filming with Tiffany. Tiffany seems to have come into herself to me. And I think she's more relaxed, maybe more comfortable with the camera, or whatever the case was. I felt like this year for me, it was more fun. It was more fun just kind of watching her do her thing this season. It's not anybody that I don't necessarily enjoy filming with, but those two to me kind of stand out. Like, those two to me kind of stand out.
Right. And I think we're all looking forward to seeing more of Tisha this season, because I feel like last season was a little rough for my girls. Even I went back and I watched the reunion, and there was, you know, the stuff that happened with her and Kiki. And how has she been? We haven't had a chance to talk to her yet, but I would imagine after such a tough season, she was a little tired of what was going on.
Doing great. Like, I think you get to a point in the show of it all where you got to have a little bit of don't give a fuck. Like, you really do, because you can't constantly make everybody happy. You literally can't, be it your spouse or production or the fans or whoever it is. At one point or another, you are who you are. And if you're comfortable in your skin, you just feel better at the end of the day, no matter what the outcome is. And Tisha in her happy space, like, she happy to be. She is. She want to get in that Scott Manor, but other than that, she's doing her thing.
Good. And I know you have to go, but before you leave, tell us about what else we can expect on this season of Love and Marriage Huntsville. Are we going to see this comeback group? Is Jesus about to fly in and bring this comeback group back together?
Jesus is calling on the saints and the angels. He's going to call on the saints and the angels to sit down at the table with us and see what we can come up with. I know there's a lot of people who don't hold out hope, but there were so many things that we talked about wanting to do that were so meaningful. I just feel poorly that we couldn't come to a meeting of the minds. So we're going to say a little prayer, and we're going to see how this all works out. And to be honest, this is what's funny. I can't always tell you what to expect. I know what I filmed. I watch this same night. When y'all turn on the TV, I turn on the TV. And it's funny because there's sometimes we're like, we filmed the whole scene. That didn't even make the cut. There's a lot of stuff that literally just doesn't make it. So hopefully you'll see a lot of our businesses growing, because we did a lot of talking and filming about our businesses growing and maturing. The title company that we're opening down here with Huss Law Firm out of Atlanta, and the real estate, me getting back into work, me finishing up the rest of my treatment so that I can kind of, get back to being my best self and keeping my family and feeding my family. Some properties that we purchased that we're trying to renovate and get back up to par. So we did a lot of that. It just remains to be seen what y'all get to see.
Right. Well, we are looking forward to seeing more, and we are so happy about all of your updates, Kimmy. And thank you so much for chatting with us and for sharing your story, especially.
And thank you for having me.
All right. Bye. Bye, guys. Hello, hello. Welcome to Bossip's Reality Meeting.
Yeah. Work, 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 work. Do me, work, 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 work. See me do me dirt, 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 dirt. Cause I'm about that work, 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 work. When you walk a line, in the cafe,
It's just entertainment purpose. It's not. It's entertainment purpose. It's not.
In the case of anybody.
This is just entertainment purpose. It's not.